I grew up in the Northwest, now live down in Phoenix. We fled Seattle a few years ago, thank goodness. But we grew up in the Northwest, and I went to law school, University of Washington Law School. And I was going to work in entertainment law. And at the time, I worked for Concerts West, which was the largest concert company in the world. And I did tour management. This is where it's going to date me. I'll let you guys see if you can figure out what years it was. So I did do the tour management for several bands, including Chicago, Earth, Wind and Fire's September tour. By nodding, you're dating yourself. I did the Bee Gees Saturday Night Fever tour, you know, which was Spirits Having Flown tour. I did all these tours, and I thought this is going to be my career, working in the concert industry. And then I managed the tour for Fleetwood Mac. It was the Tusk tour, and during that tour, I thought they were going to kill each other. And I was in my early 20s. I had ulcers. I mean, it was crazy. So can anybody guess what years? I told you Saturday Night Fever.
70.
Really close. Yeah, 79, 80, and 81. Saturday Night Fever came out in 78. Good job. And for you that knew the answers, they just really dated themselves.
Yeah.
And so anyway, when I was doing that, I was doing Fleetwood Mac, I had ulcers, I didn't know what I was going to do. And I had met this guy from the Northwest, Paul Revere and the Raiders. Anybody remember? Oh yeah. And we called him Uncle Paul. We lost him a couple of years ago, and to cancer. But Uncle Paul, that's what we called him, because he always gave us sage advice. He goes, Roger, you're never going to change the world working in the music industry. I know these guys in Canada developing this resort. You're a good promoter. You can go make that happen. And so I went up and helped develop Whistler Resort in British Columbia, which became the #1 ski resort destination in North America for about 35 or 40 years. So I did Whistler Resort in British Columbia, and they had a master development plan. And my job was to recruit all the investment, the marketing, the branding, and everything for Whistler Resort based on this master development plan. And then from there, I went over work with Vail Associates, and we did a turnaround of Copper Mountain Resort in Colorado. Then I did Sun River Resort in Central Oregon near Mount Bachelor. So those are all ski resorts. Then I went down to Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and for 10 years, I worked in resort development. And this is going to come back around to what about, Frostfire and in the Gorge. And then I got a call from a guy out in Ocean Shores, Washington, that said, would you ever come and fix a town? And that was in 1991. So from 81 to 91, we did resorts. And his name was Mike Pence, but a different Mike Pence than was the vice president. He moved to Montana, and he retired a couple years ago, and during this whole Trump era, he was getting calls every day thinking that he was the other Mike Pence. But I went out to Ocean Shores and helped turn around that town. It was a beach town of about 2,500 people, and it was all full of 1960s mom and pop motels like the Gitchy Goomy. I mean, it was, and 65% of Washington residents went to the Oregon coast. They didn't go to their home. So I had to go out there and turn that place around, and I recruited $400 million worth of new development out in this little town in 4 years. But there were a lot of citizens there that when I went there to turn around this town, by the way, it had failed fire equipment that weren't even certified to have a ladder go up 2 stories. The town had 23 miles of interconnecting waterways and everything, but there was no sewer system, so the sand base, it's a beach town, would filter out the effluents, but it would go into these lakes, and then there was weed growth. I mean, the whole town needed millions of dollars worth of infrastructure improvements, but they didn't have the tax base. And so they said, Roger, we want you to come here and beef up our commercial tax base. And that meant newer hotels, actually become a resort town. But a lot of people had moved there, they had retired there, and once they got there, they said, we don't want anybody else here, we don't want tourism. But the city council says, we have to do this. If we want to put sewers in our town, that we want to get new fire equipment, we wanted new EMS equipment, we wanted a new library, and there's no tax base to do that. Only 25% of the 12,000 lots in Ocean Shores was even developed. And so I went to the city council in a closed section when they were going to contract. I actually took a leave of absence from our business for 3 years to go help that city. And I said, you may not get reelected, but we can change this. We can change this whole culture. We could change this. We could get new hotels, new tax base. And it would be commercial tax base, so it wouldn't rely on the residential tax base to subsidize getting all of this stuff. You know, like the sewer system was kind of going to cost $40 million. So we did that. Then that brought in another group of citizens called the Citizens for Responsive Government, because they moved there as retirees, and once they're there, want to shut it off. And so, but the council, we did it. We recruited $400 million worth of new tax base. And what happened is, the Citizens for Responsive Government pretty much ousted everybody and on the city council, because we stood for change. And then the whole thing died. We left. You know, the city manager, Mike Pence, he left. He went to Kalispell, Montana. I mean, the city council left. 4 years later, they're going, why did we ever let that go? Because they ended up with a brand new library, brand new police station, brand new golf clubhouse. They put in a $40 million sewer system. They spent $7 million fixing roads and waterways. They improved everything. They built a new school. They did all of this stuff based on the new commercial property tax we brought in, and they still had the second lowest property taxes in the state of Washington. And so that was a real learning experience for me. And since then, we've worked in 2,200 communities in 45 states. We've done every province in Canada extensively, except Manitoba. I've spoken up in Winnipeg, but we really haven't worked in Manitoba. And then we've worked, of course, across the pond in Scotland and all of Western Europe and Scandinavia and down in Africa on the island of Mauritius and that. So that's kind of the background. And so we've been doing this for so long that finally Don called me and said, would you come in here and work with these 4 counties? And so we came in and secret shopped you over the last month. We've been here for a month and about 3 days, I think now, something like that. So we actually have gotten to know you. And I have to tell you that when I came into Walhalla, my very first impression, well, first of all, we went to the Pembina Gorge, which I thought was really underdeveloped for its potential. And I think Mike back here that runs Icelandic would agree, you know, I mean, and then we saw Frostfire. And I took one look at Frostfire, and by the way, I went to Frostfire a couple of times, and every time I went there, the gate was closed. I don't know when they were open, if they were open. I mean, there was just lots of issues there, and so Don actually set up a separate meeting where I came up on a Sunday and met with Patty and Dustin up there, and they gave me the tour. We drove around on OHV or ATVs and really checked it all out. And my response was, my gosh, this is the best tourism asset in this whole part of North Dakota. All of eastern North Dakota. I mean, most people think everything's over there, but you know, you got Medora and Teddy Roosevelt National Park. You've got all that stuff over in the western side of the state, but I saw this as a potential that was just unreal. And I still believe it. But when we were doing this assessment, we were just talking to people, and my first question I would ask them, so do you think that Walhalla would be open to tourism, increased tourism? And we're not talking millions of people, we're talking, wouldn't it be great if we had 300 people a day mountain biking or hiking or whatever in both these 2 places, the Gorge and Frostfire? So we're not talking about turning you into a Whistler resort or, you know, a Colorado ski resort town or anything. We're just trying to say, what could we do here? And virtually everybody we talked to said this, and these are the rumors, and that's why we're here, is number one, Walhalla does not want tourism. We don't want growth. We don't want anything to do with Crossfire. And so, you know, and that's what you're gonna find when you go there. And these are all secondhand. Nobody that we talked to said, Walhalla would love to see that grow. And so that is why we're here, is to find out, I mean, the potential for this town is unbelievable. And the potential for Crossfire and for Pembina Gorge is unreal. And we're not talking about mega resorts. I mean, you have one lift. You know, it's not like you have 23 like in Whistler, you know, and some of those. But I just kept going, wow, what you have here is amazing. Most people, and so that's number one. Two more things, and then I want to open it up. I would love to hear from you. Is number two. North Dakota only has 2.9% of all the land in North Dakota is publicly owned. 2.9%. The next lowest state in the country is 20%. So you have very little public lands in North Dakota for recreation, which, if you want people to live here, they're going to look at your recreation. It's going to be one of the top 5 things they look for. That's part of quality of life. And by the way, I would venture to guess that most of that 2.9% is on the other side of the state. National Park, the national grasslands, all of that. And so these lands right here are incredibly important for recreation, for even people in Grand Forks. And so I kept going, wow, that would be amazing, because that's a real shortcoming of North Dakota when you're trying to attract workers. So that's number one. Number two, North Dakota is well known as the most fiscally conservative state in the country. And one thing that, and that was written up in, what is it, the International Downtown Association and the League of Cities and some of those, is that, and what I've noticed in places that we've worked is that we don't want to invest in the future. All of our money is saved as a rainy day fund. And I'll give you a good example. And I'm going to pick on Grafton for a minute. Is I was talking to Bill, the parks director there, and he said, you know, I want to build a dog park. This was the general response. We've never had one before. Why would we want one now? You know, and it's like, and then they built the dog park, and then there was complaints. We spent so much money for just a fence. You know what I mean? And then the Grafton Parks Department bought a bunch of land from the state. You know, that was going to sell it for like $1,000 an acre, and he got them down to $100 an acre. And they bought all this property. They put a 1.5. We're staying at Listico Park. We RV here. We've been RVing around the country all year since the beginning of April. And we're right there. They built a 1.5 mile trail. They have corn mazes. They have all these things there. It's been fabulous. But when he bought that for the $100 an acre, the comments he got were, "Why did we pay so much?" And now we have all this other stuff we have to take care of. I mean, and he's trying to build for the future. And yet it's just resistance for everything. I always wonder, if it wasn't for the major flood in Grand Forks in 1997, would that city be as nice as it is now with the greenway and everything? Maybe not. It seems like the only time we spend money is when there's a major disaster, and then we'll do something that's progressive. Because it's like, how do you get people to invest in the future? And then that brings me to the last point. For the first time in American history, jobs are not leading economic development. Quality of life is. That means jobs are going where this talent wants to be or will be. The jobs will follow them. And if they're going to school, and you guys are saying, the second I graduate, I'm blowing this town, which I've heard everywhere, not just here, everywhere. When I graduate, I'm blowing this town. And so now, if your young people want to come back after they go to college or whatever, they want to stay here, they will do that. They will move to a place for quality of life, and then they'll find a way to make a living. That never happened before, ever. Before that, it was wherever the jobs are, people go there. And so that means quality of life is number one. In 2018 or 19, I was invited to keynote the second largest Main Street conference in the United States which was in Bismarck. And so I told him about the importance of a downtown, a gathering place, a sense of community. And after I did the conference, this guy comes up to me and says, Roger, I think you're my new best friend. And his aide leaned over and said, I'd like to introduce you to Doug Burgum, our governor. And he made Main Street his #1 priority of his 5 big initiatives. The challenge is I've been in 42, all 42 of, I think it's 42 of your incorporated cities in these 4 counties. And by the way, we didn't do Cavalier County except for Frostfire and Penda Gorge. So it was like Don said, you know, Penda, you know, Walsh, Nelson, and Grand Forks counties. And what I found is that Main Street, that whole program doesn't really apply to probably 35 of the 42 cities. See what I mean? There's smaller towns that need other things besides Main Street. And so, you know, I'm hoping to get another session with the governor and some of your legislators at that level. Number one, they need to invest more. Most of your population lives on this side of the state, but most of the marketing is for the other side of the state. See what I mean? And the other problem is North Dakota has this cloud over it. And I'll give you a perfect example. We're staying at this RV park, and it's full. Every time I go outside or meet somebody, they say, oh, you're here for harvest. At first I thought, oh, there must be a festival coming up. I didn't even know what, and I go, no. Now, if they were from, and by the way, there's people coming from all over the country for harvest. They're here for 2 or 3 weeks, making the money, and they're leaving the state with that money. It's not staying here. But people come up to me and say, are you here for harvest? I go, no. And if they're from Florida, Illinois, Idaho, I mean, they're from all over, they say, so what brings you here? I mean, just look at my experience. So what brings you here? I said, we're working with the Red River Regional Council, and I explained what we're doing. And they said, well, that's really cool. But then, and I'd say, where are you from? But then after a while, people would come up to me and they say, so, are you here for harvest? I would go, no. And they would go like this, then why are you here? And when I asked them where they're from, North Dakota. I mean, I couldn't believe that people in North Dakota are like apologetic. Why are you here? Why would you even be here? You know, when it comes to talking to people about the weather, I would say, man, we've been here and it's been fabulous weather. I mean, we had one day we had 2.5 inches of rain, whatever, but I mean, there were days when it was hotter here than in Phoenix where we live over the last month. But when I say I really like it here, the fall color is beautiful, which I never thought of in North Dakota before. I mean, I never would have thought there was fall color in North Dakota. Heck, most people don't think there's trees in North Dakota. They think you're Iowa. And they don't get it, that every community is full of trees. And I would say the weather's been fabulous, and every single local person says, but you haven't been here in January. I'm going, really? Really? I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was at a meeting with Don in Grafton with economic development, and I said, the weather's been really great, and a council person said, you haven't been here in the winter. We can't even leave our houses for 7 months. I mean, I've just been shocked at how negative North Dakotans are, and maybe, and then people say, oh, it's our Scandinavian heritage. I'm going, nope, because we've worked all over Minnesota and Wisconsin, which have the same heritage, and I never hear that. I've never heard anybody in those 2 states start saying, oh, but have you been here? Even when people apply for jobs here, the employer will say, do you think you can tough it out through our winters? I mean, it's like, really? I mean, so there seems to be this underlying self-deprecating conscience about North Dakota that just perpetuates a perception that's not true. Your winters are no worse than they are in Kansas, in Iowa, all the lake effect snow they get in Michigan, in Wisconsin, and parts of Illinois. And yet that seems to be this kind of this attitude. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do we get people to live here when even if they think about living here, you go, really, are you sure you want to be here? You know, and so that kind of permeates everything. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. And I think it's really important to start at school. So Jacob back there on the camera, Jacob back there grew up here. And when I asked him about, about this, we apologize about the winter and how tough it is and all of these things, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jacob, is he just says, yeah, we've heard that ever since we practically a little kid, 5 years old. I mean, that's how we grew up. I think you got to change that culture starting with them. Your winters are no worse than Iowa. And by the way, this state, I went and looked at the perceptions of North Dakota, where they said, there's no trees, it's barren, it's flat, it's boring, there's nothing there. And then I would show all these photographs, and I'll bet you if I went around the country showing those photographs, that you guess which state this is. I'll give you 10 chances. I wonder if North Dakota would ever come up on anything, because there's a perception about you. The perception is created, number one, by locals who automatically send out signals that, why the heck would you be here? You know what I mean? That kind of little negativity that I've never heard in other states like I've heard it here. And then number two is your state's tourism budget is one of the lowest in the country. You're being outspent 3 times as much in Montana. You're being outspent like 9 times by Minnesota. You're being outspent by South Dakota by 3 or 4 times. And so the only time the rest of us in the country hear about North Dakota is when you have your next disaster and you make the national news. I mean, the other day it rained 2.5 inches. We're at Listicle Park, and that's on that, the Park River, Forest River, which river is that? Park River. And I'm sitting there with my wife, and we're going, I hope we're not going to get flooded out. See, even us were like, oh my God. So we walked over to the river, and it was higher, but it's like, really? And so these are these perceptions that just kind of, because that's all we ever hear in North Dakota. The rest of the country doesn't even know about it. I got to tell you, I sat on the board of the U.S. Travel Association, which is their job is to promote America for tourism. They're based out of Washington, D.C. Roger Dow runs it. He was a Marriott executive and everything. And you know what? He's going to retire in the next couple of years. And so he was talking with Julie that runs Grand Forks for tourism. And you know what Roger Dow said? Before I retire, I need to get to North Dakota. It's the one state I've never been in. I mean, why does North Dakota always have to be number 50? See what I mean? And so he's going to come here. I think he's going to come speak at the Governor's Conference on Tourism this next year. But those are the points, I mean, I think I saw something that said we've had 27 disasters in 27 years. I mean, it's like, gosh, does anything good happen in North Dakota? Yet, I'm in our campground. A guy comes up to me and introduces himself and says, are you here for harvest? I go, no. And he goes, oh, so why are you here? I knew instantly he wasn't in North Dakota because he didn't make a face. And he says, I'm a supervisor, I live in Florida, and he said, did you know that 85% of the sugar you consume comes from this area in North Dakota? Had no clue. And he went on about beans, about sunflowers, what a major producer you are to the world in terms of your agriculture. I didn't know any of that. I mean, yeah, we always think, oh, it all comes from Sacramento Valley, California. Not true. And I asked him, I said, so you live in Florida, and you're here now for harvest. Would you ever consider living here? And after harvest, you'd go down to Florida because, you don't want the winters. One day he goes, I love this area. I would live here in a heartbeat, but the locals tell me how horrible it is. I heard that from 4 people in one little campground, that the locals have talked us out of living here. And so I'm trying to figure out, how do you attract, when I met the governor, he said we have 60,000 jobs, of which a majority pay 6 digits, like 100,000 or more a year. And I don't know if that's all oil and gas on the other side of the state, I don't know. But he said there's a ton of jobs here. We can't get people to live here. Now I know why. Number 1, undermarketed. Number 2, a local attitude that we don't understand why anybody would want to live here. And finally the last one. This state has a slogan, be legendary. The problem is, I could be legendary in any of the 50 states. I don't have to come to North Dakota to be legendary. I really think that North Dakota's brand should be more about the resiliency of its people. I mean, what you do as a people, every time there's a disaster, you're not bailing on the state. Some of your people are, you're all losing population. But I just believe that the resiliency, I just think that if there was ever a state that had resilient, tough people, this is it. And I think that whole brand needs to shift somewhat, and that's a conversation with the state. But I mean, I'd love to hear from you, but I'll tell you one thing I think needs to happen. So let me talk about Frostfire for a second. I think Frostfire needs to have a master development plan. What do you want to be when you grow up? And right now, the way it works in North Dakota is you're reactive, not proactive. I think every community is reactive. We're gonna hoard our money and then we'll save it when we need to fix roads or sewers or something, but we're not gonna do anything proactive to attract people, just like the dog park. Or in Grafton, buying extra property, putting trails on it. And say, why would we do that? It's just more to take care of. See, it's those kinds of things. But I kept thinking, if you had a master development plan for Frostfire, and there's a golf course there, I don't know if the city owns it, I don't know if it's publicly owned, but I kept going, somewhere we need, Frostfire could host weddings. Frostfire could hold corporate retreats. And we're not talking big things, we're talking about small things. I think that summer theater could be amazing, where it draws 300 people a day and it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday during the summer season. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't attract 200 or 300 people a day for mountain biking. I mean, this is not a place where you're gonna bring hordes of people. You have one run, it's fairly small, but you partner that with the Pembina Gorge. I just kept going, this could be a really great place for 200 or 300 people a day, kind of keep it fairly limited so we don't overrun anybody, and your restaurants will do better. And by the way, the #1 activity for visitors in the world, not the thing that drew them, but once they arrive, the top activity is shopping, dining, and entertainment in a pedestrian-friendly setting. That's where 80% of their spending takes place. That means downtown Walhalla could have another 300 customers a day for probably 150, 200 days a year, if the community wanted it. This community needs, you have a hotel in town. But if you look at the reviews for the hotel, they're not good, and whoever owns it, they might be in this room, never responds to their reviews on TripAdvisor or Google or anything. And so I thought, man, if we had a decent hotel that you could track weddings, whether this one, it would give them incentive to invest in their property, but maybe we need even more than that. Would you be okay to have another hotel? Would it be, somewhere should be an RV park. RV is huge. They sold 500,000 units last year. This year they're selling nearly 600,000 new units. RVs are huge and they love the rural areas. And they shop at your grocery stores, your gas station, wherever we can buy propane. We love dog parks, because 80% of RVers have pets. I mean, on and on. And by the way, the average age of a person buying an RV is not a boomer, it's 38 years old. So this is huge. 2 million people live in RVs full-time in the United States. 2 million. 1.5 million of them are like us. We're called digital nomads. We can be anywhere. Now, we do actually have a house we can go back to. But in most cases, there's people that are in their 30s and they're homeschooling their kids. They're living. They could go wherever the work is. They buy a house for $50,000. Basically, it's a house on wheels. And so I kept thinking, where could we put a really great RV park here? Where could we put another hotel here so that we could do weddings and retreats and team building, like United Way. They're always looking. State agencies are always looking for places they can do little conferences and retreats. 100 people, 200 people, 300 people. And so I kept going, if there was ever a place I'd take advantage of, it'd be Walhalla. You wouldn't have vacancies in your downtown. It would you would just start to grow. But you may say, nope, we don't want it. And that's what I would like to hear from you. One more thing is I believe that tourism only works if you can monetize it. Right now, I can go from Grand Forks, provision up there, bring lunch, everything, bring a cooler up there, drive all the way that 2 hours or 2.5 hours, whatever it is, to Pemmican Gorge, spend all day out there, pack up the day, and go back home. We just had traffic in your town, we had people in your, and we didn't spend a dime. Tourism means nothing to anybody if you can't monetize it. And that's what we're talking about. I mean, places like this restaurant, you know, would they like to have another 25 customers a day? Or the Walhalla Inn, I mean, wherever you've got those things, they could benefit from it. And so, I'll answer questions for you, but I'd like to know from you, number one, are these rumors true that we don't want it? And if not, tell me why, or if so, it's not a problem. With this, we're doing a thing right now. There's a survey out there, by the way, that's online. And let me give you the URL to it. So if you don't mind writing this down, it's bit.ly, so bit.ly, bit.ly / and that dot's the period, not, don't spell that out, / weigh in now. And weigh in now is capital W, capital I, capital N. So bit.ly / weigh in now. There's an online questionnaire, and it'll ask where you live. It'll say, what do you think our 3 greatest assets are? What do you think our 3 greatest challenges are? Do you even want to be part of this? Because there may be some of these 42 committees that say, you know, Roger, we know where you're coming from, but that's not for us. Then what we'll do with this plan is concentrate on those that said, yeah, we're open for that. We're open for new residents, or we're open for increased tourism. And once again, we're not talking Disney. We're just talking 200 or 300 people, so yes.
Yeah. No, and I don't believe that rumor is true.
Right?
For the simple fact that the city of Walhalla, for the last 25, 30 years, we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars developing tourism amenities. With the canoeing, we did, the city of Walhalla did that. The bike path, the trail development, getting Park and Rec here. The city of Walhalla worked with the governor's office to get Park and Rec here. We have developed scenic overlooks. We have developed a lot of things. We have always claimed that the way to destination tourism to the Pemmican Gorge, you have to come through Walhalla unless you come from the west. So take care. I mean, it's our opportunity. It always has been. I just believe that for the last 10 years maybe, we have kind of fell under the radar and slipped a little bit and not continued our potential, because I'll tell you what, we have received millions of dollars and thousands of dollars of grants over the last 50 years to develop tourism. 1992, the city of Walhalla and the previous owners of Crossfire, we started the Rendezvous region and hired the first consultant to come and give us an idea, how do we develop the corridor? Then Cavalier, Langdon, Pembina all chipped in and we developed the Rendezvous region. Granted, over the years, it slipped a little bit for the fact that everybody got tired and there was no money. And Roger is correct in saying, I mean, when you live on this side of the Missouri River, Bismarck really doesn't know who you are. You better have your butt in Bismarck every other month telling them who you are. Otherwise, they forget who you are. And I mean, so when I heard those rumors the other day at the meeting that Walhalla doesn't want tourism, I could hardly believe it. I was so upset, I almost started to cry, thinking of the past mayors and city council members and chamber directors that have worked so hard over the last 30 years to try to develop tourism. It took 20 years for the city of Walhalla to convince people in Pembina County that tourism was not a festival. Tourism is not a festival. Tourism is everyday traffic. A festival is mini economic development that comes into your community and spends money. But that only works if the businesses are open. If the businesses are open, my philosophy was, why have the festival? The festivals are for the businesses, so they can create opportunities in their businesses, but if they're closed, what was the point? For your local people, great. Your local people to go to the beer gardens and drink beer and have fun and blow some balloons and let their kids ride around on the little thing. But you're doing your festivals for your businesses. That's why you do the festival, to create that economic gain and to stop retail leakage in your communities. now I'm done. But I mean, I don't believe that Walhalla does not want tourism. I think we've become lackadaisical and have not taken care of ourselves over the years.
Okay, and with that, there's one thing that she mentioned that I want to talk about, is, and I haven't looked at all the demographics and dug in quite yet on everything, because we didn't secret shopping at all for this first phase of this.
In Walhalla?
But including Walhalla.
I thought you said you only did the gorge and.
No, we did Walhalla.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we did. You're one of the
Did you
42
hit every
towns.
business in town?
What's that?
Did you hit every business in town?
Yeah.
No, you didn't.
Well, we didn't go in every business, but we looked at every business. We photographed almost every business in town, and some of
West
them.
end of town?
What's that?
West end of town?
What, anything we could find, yeah, that was consumer based.
Shill shop?
What's that?
Shill's shop?
I don't,
He's a blacksmith.
what's that?
He's a blacksmith.
I can pull out all the photographs and look at it. We took over 2,200 photographs. When we did the presentation, it was, so we couldn't include everything. But we would go around and we looked at all of this. We photographed them, looked at curb appeal, did they have the hours on the door? Could you tell whether they were in business? When we did our workshop, we even said, we couldn't tell who was in business and who wasn't. You know, so we gave tons of suggestion things that make it more obvious if you're in business.
So you didn't go into every business?
We didn't go into every business because we're
So
doing
you wouldn't know whether they were open or not?
Well, we went up to dozens of businesses where, around all 4 counties, where we'd go up and the door was locked. And we probably went to 100 businesses where we'd walk up, and so no. And quite honestly, we didn't have time to go into every single business in 4 counties, in 42 cities. But most people that come in from the outside probably wouldn't go into any town even. And I said, we can't help you if we can't go spend some time in every one of your towns to kind of get a feel for what's the drive like, what does downtown look like. We ate 2 meals here in this town. We went to Frostfire, we were in Walhalla 3 times. You're the only place we're in 3 times. And so, no, we did not go into every business. We probably photographed every business. So if I go find the shoe shop, there's probably photographs in here of that shop. I mean, this is just in Pembina County. These are all the photographs we took. There's just no way I could show everyone in our workshop. I mean, you know, unless you want to see 760 photographs. And so, but what we do is when we secret shop an area, we're just trying to get a feel for it. Just trying to get a feel for it. And just say, wow, and we just saw the potential here. I just really love the potential. I love the booth that's in the intersection with the flags. I mean, I just thought this is a really great place. Yes.
My name is Travis. I don't actually live here full time, but I come here from Maple Grove. I grew up in North Dakota. And I used to be a lot like these guys here, where I wanted to get out of mine as quickly as I could, because I was going to make it for myself. You know? So, moved to college, met my wife there, moved to Minneapolis. I own a business there. I went to school, graduated in computer engineering at NDSU. But I know in my mind this is something that I spend a lot of my time on now that I have more availability with my life. Planning, I bought a place up here, the Boldensteiner's place, and why this is relevant to me is I'm also wanting to bring my children. I've got 8 kids that have 5 of them will be ready to do things and make money, and a lot of them want to make money. They want to have a great opportunity. So for me, the biggest thing that's important here is to, and I've asked people in town, this is a problem that I'm also trying to solve myself with my own resources, because I have kids and a family that we want to live here, and so the point is, I asked people in town, and what do you think Walhalla needs? And the answer was raising the income level of everyone. And to me, that should be the goal. If you can do that and stop these people from finding more opportunity outside, just like I'm going to be doing with my own kids, by giving them an income that goes, instead of a $15 an hour job, get something that's $80 a job. or an hour for work. That's the kind of opportunity I see out there with my business and the market and what's happening with jobs and the lack of people that can do work within professional services for supply chain is what we do. So there's new technology that's becoming available, and I'm toying with the idea of teaching my own kids this technology, which isn't coding, but it's the ability to be a part of the larger financial picture. And so I think creating a high-tech training environment where we can teach people, it doesn't have to be just high school kids, but you know, anyone in the community that's looking for new job opportunities could be a part of maybe it's a cooperative, you know, professional services company that springs out of it where everybody becomes a shareholder. And you know, I've been thinking about this a lot actually, so anyway, I just want to throw it out.
Yeah, and those are the kinds of things. One, you know, the reason we keep bringing up tourism is because it's the quickest, easiest thing you can do to leverage. And tourism promotes quality of life. It's promoting your trails, the gorge, the crossfire, whatever you have, your local parks, ball fields. And so we keep bringing up tourism. And also, these three of the county, all four counties, except for those that are right around Grand Forks, have a tremendous amount of leakage. You are almost leaking out more money than you bring in. And as cities and towns, that's like a business, you go broke. And so tourism is a good, if you ever, heaven forbid, anybody in Walhalla ever goes to Grafton or Grand Forks to buy anything, that's leakage. Tourism can help fill that hole that you left. I mean, heck, we're staying in Grafton, we know where 32nd in Grand Forks is right away. You know, that's, you know, where the super Walmart, Target and all that, you know, Menards and all that is. And we learned that really quickly, and then that's, everybody talks to us, oh yeah, take 32nd. You know, the auto dealerships and everything. So, but I think things like that are a perfect tie to tourism. So I gotta tell you, in Whistler Resort, when we did that, and granted, and by the way, when I started working on Whistler Resort in British Columbia, which is 75 miles north of Vancouver, the population was 861. Now it's about 12,000. I'm not saying you ever want to get to that big, because it's totally a different thing. But in there, we set up an innovation station. We called it an innovation station, where people come in a resort atmosphere and they would take classes, they would learn, and they would be there for, it could be for 3 months. You know, and that's where it goes beyond hotels to where can we get those cabins, you know, build little cabins, and those are revenue generators. And then people are there, and they're there for these tech classes there. So tourism isn't always about just downhill skiing or ATVing or mountain biking. It also is a great way to educate people. And when people want to go to retreats, team building, like United Way will always do team retreats. Even like the North Dakota Automobile Dealers Association probably has team retreats where they work with their salespeople and everything, and they teach them about new technologies in vehicles and how to sell vehicles, and they're looking for places like this to do it in. And you're right, they don't want to do it downtown Bismarck or Fargo or one of the big cities. They want to do it out here where we can get their attention in a perfect setting. And so this does go beyond it, so I'm glad you brought that up. But yes.
Jim Martini, my wife and I moved here about 7 years ago, and we live just outside of town, and we love it here. And when we first moved here, we saw this tremendous potential. I'd like to make a comment and ask a question. The comment, you know, we talk about the Januaries, which lasts 3 months or something like that. The people of North Dakota take kind of a perverse pride in living in this kind of environment. It goes back to their roots, their history and all that.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a realization of just how much damage that does to the state. I've been guilty of that. Some people say, boy, it's really cold out there, and I'm saying, boy, you know how cold it is. The question, you're focusing on tourism. What about business recruitment?
That's where tourism comes in.
That's where tourism comes in. But as far as,
It's a tourist business.
yeah, but non-tourism. I always say tourism is the front door to your non-tourism economic zone. Anybody who's gonna come here, a site selector, a venture capital firm, a commercial real estate agent, they're all gonna come here first as what? A visitor. Is this a place my client would wanna live, his or her employees would wanna live? So even for business recruitment, they're gonna come here and they're gonna judge you by the cover without going into every single business. They're just gonna take a look at you, look at your parks, look at your schools. They're gonna go online and they're gonna do some research. And so tourism is the front door to that, but yes, I would hope so. I mean, I'm the first person that would say your entire economic development shouldn't be tourism. But it can certainly open the doors because you become a more desirable place to live. Quality of life is leading economic development now. And so if you're a place where young people want to go because you have the best biking trails, the best ATV trails, and you have year-round recreation, then young people are going to want to live here, and if they want to live here, I think those non-tourism type employees will come here. But here's one thing you have to remember. There are 19,500 cities in the United States, cities and towns, all incorporated, 19,500. You name one in any of the, let's say the 48 contiguous states here. I could go on and type in the name Walhalla. And I could go to Wikipedia, I could Google images and get a visual of what you look like. Competition is fierce. And so anybody that has these businesses could go anywhere. And what they're doing is they're going places where their employees would want to live. But yes, I would absolutely think there should be more than just tourism. Tourism is just a way to showcase what you really have to offer, get people here to come once, and if they love it, maybe they'll move here. And maybe they'll start a business here, like you know, what he was talking about. Now, one thing that you mentioned, oh jeez, I was just gonna talk about this, was the weather. When you talked about, yes, the January, the 3 months and everything, I gotta tell you, we live in Phoenix.
Yeah, there's there too.
Okay, when somebody comes to us and say, man, I love the weather in October, November, December, I have never heard a person say, but you haven't been here in July. You know what we say? And they'll say, but isn't it like blistering hot in July, like 115? You know what we say? Oh, but it's a dry heat. Right? Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
See what I mean? Right, yeah. Oh, it's a dry heat. You know. But see what I mean? But here it's like, why would you ever come here? So those are those kind of things. So for instance, I'm gonna go back to Bill, the Parks Director in Grafton. They bought that acreage, and he goes, in the winter, we rent out cross-country skis. And he goes, people go, well, why would you do that? I mean, nobody here is interested in cross-country skiing, but people would go there, rent cross-country skis for the very first time. It's an easy 1.5 mile trail around the park next to the river, and they go, now we get it. See what I mean? It's about trying new things. And so we rent snowshoes. And so now there are some young people that are embracing the winter like they do in all the other Midwest and Western states. They actually embrace it. And they get outdoors. And you have fire pits in your downtown. And granted, if it's 50 below zero, maybe we're not out there for that week or whatever. You know, but I just think those are things that in other states, they make an excuse like we go, oh, it's dry heat, you know. Oh, it only lasts a couple of months. You know, I mean, I kiddingly tell people all the time, for 8 months of the year, we live in the Valley of the Sun, and it's phenomenal. And the other 4 months, we live on the surface of the sun. You know, and that's, you know, but on the other hand, we just say, I've had people say from Seattle where we're from, and said, how can you stand the heat? I say, well, do you go out and stand in the rain? They go, no, we don't go stand out in the heat. Everything we own is air conditioned. Our cars, our garage, see what I mean? So we always say, but we have an air conditioned house. Heck, we can, in the middle of summer, I can jump in a pool and be soaking wet, and I don't get overheated for the next 45 minutes. That's about how long it takes before you gotta jump in. But see what I mean? We make excuses about the positive rather than saying, oh my God, you've never been here. You know, when we hear elected officials say we can't leave our house for 7 months, how do you ever get new people to live here? So anyway, I just wanted to say, go ahead.
Another comment, you know, we have labor issues all over the place.
Oh, yeah, and it's in all 50 states, by the way, right
Yeah,
now.
and, you know, I'm just, you know, my concern is if you don't give people a really good wage to stay here, you're not gonna have people to work at the
True.
resort.
And that is true. I will tell you one thing that happened to us. We were working in Sandusky, Ohio several months ago. Sandusky, Ohio is known for Cedar Point, which is a huge, big theme park. And right now, in 2021, there's been pent-up demand for tourism because everybody's been holed up for a year and a half. And workers have been incentivized to stay home. I mean, the federal unemployment thing didn't run out until like the second week of September, and people are so used to staying home, they're not gonna go back to work until they're forced to. So we've created kind of a problem around the country, and then I'm not trying to get into politics here, but back to Sandusky, when they reopened Cedar Point this summer, they had a problem. They usually open 7 days a week. They could only be open 5 days a week. So they started renting billboards and saying, you wanna work at Cedar Point? $20 an hour to start. You name your hours and how many hours you wanna work, and you'll get full benefits. The challenge with that is now they're leaving all the restaurants and everything to go work there, and they're having to raise their rates up to these kind of rates, but they don't have enough tourism or support to maintain those wage levels. See what I mean? And so, and this is gonna be a problem clear until the middle of next year, when people realize there's no more federal subsidies, no more federal insurance, no more stimulus checks. Pretty soon people are gonna be forced to go back to work. And so this is a problem every state is having right now, and when people are forced to go back to work, they finally will. You know, and because now, all of our benefits, everything's run out, we gotta go back to work. The challenge you have in North Dakota is every single community outside of Grand Forks in these 4 counties is losing population. It's not just people sitting at home, you're actually losing population. And I pulled the demographics of all 42, and granted there's Thompson and those that are right next to Grand Forks that are basically bedroom communities. And so for you, it's not even about that, we're even losing population. How do we get them back? And that's gonna be quality of life.
You know, to comment on what Travis was saying about, and when you were talking about economic development, when the city of Walhalla years ago used to start recruiting, try to recruit businesses, you can find a Butler building anywhere for people to move into. But the main part of the package was always your tourism amenities, what can you offer the people? Healthcare. Walhalla is one of the very few rural communities in this side, not western North Dakota, you can't count them because they do great in healthcare. Eastern North Dakota, one of the few communities that we have our own clinic. And we've had our own clinic. None of the other communities in Pembina County have a clinic. St. Thomas, I mean, well, besides Cavalier and Langdon because they're our counties, but Pembina, whatever. We are so fortunate that we can add healthcare to our bio, to our portfolio. And all the amenities that we have, that's what you put in a recruitment package when it comes to recruiting businesses and families to live here. Even your doctors and your administrators at your school, your teachers, whatever, that all goes in their packet. Is number one, is the recreation and the things we have to offer besides a Butler building. I mean, you can put up a 300 by 4 Butler building anywhere, you have that. But those things are top of the list.
Yeah. Forbes, Money Magazine, Wall Street Journal, University of Michigan, Niche.com, Livability.com, all these organizations got together and they surveyed tens of thousands of millennials, basically people in their 30s, late 20s, all through the 30s, early 40s. And they polled them and said, what are the 10 most important things you want when you live? By the way, we are now a mobile country. For the first time in decades, this country is super mobile. People are going where they want to live. We even did a webinar called Zoom Towns. That's all about these towns that are starting to get young people that are there because rural is back. People kept saying rural's dying. It's not. In the rest of the country, rural is coming back. I call it the rise of rural. If you can provide these 10 things, and they put them in order. Number one was safety for kids, because they're having their kids in their late 30s, early 40s. I can't remember them in order, but it's in the presentation we did for Pembina County. But jobs was number 10, by the way. But one of those, we want a sense of belonging. We want to feel like we belong. I was in many communities where people say, what are you doing here? And it's not welcoming. It said, oh, we're so glad to, you know what I mean? We actually have people say, what are you doing here? I mean, I'm carrying around a big camera, and people were following us around, and not here, but in some of these communities. You know, in one community, they called the cops on us because they didn't know what we were doing, photographing people's houses and stuff, because we were just showing, what's that?
You're spies.
Yeah, we're spies, yeah. But I just, you know, so you have to have, are you open-minded? Do you want young people to come in and start new businesses and maybe they rent ATVs, or maybe they have a sporting goods store, maybe, you know, even and our first thing is, how do we help our existing businesses get more customers? So they can do better, they can beautify their business, they can invest in their businesses, they can fix the wiring in here, you know, those kinds of things, because they're working on a shoestring budget. And so those are the kinds of things we look for.
I think we have a question.
Yeah, I want,
You're okay. Robin, I have a question, then I'll have a comment following that. With the younger generation, the 20 to mid-30s
yeah,
crowd.
the 30s, just millennials.
Exactly. How diversified is their education on the do-it-yourself? Like how invested are they in trade skills or in technologies? I know they're invested in technology.
Huge.
Okay.
Okay, so people in their 30s, generally speaking, they're all very tech savvy. I mean, these younger generations have never known a non-digital world that a lot of us grew up in. They don't know it. I mean, they're born in the age of social media. And that's what they know, that's what they embrace, that's what they want to do. It's all about new technologies, all of those kinds of things.
So that poses my second comment, because based off what Travis said, with dealing with technology, would it be wise for the community or individuals for us to have a building something the size of the restaurant here to make a makerspace with technology retreat to educate young people and everybody else?
Yeah, of course. These are all
Because
great.
that would bring tourism in for, hey, we have this. And then the younger generations that don't have not a set of skills, but they're curious on, hey, how do we weld? How do we do woodworking? How do we?
Right, and so here's another thing, is we're in an RV. We're staying in Grafton. 2 reasons why we're staying in Grafton. Number 1, we have good cell service. Number 2, we're centrally located. But number 3, I do webinars every month. I need broadband. I need fiber. And we could find it at Red River Regional Council. But there's a new thing coming out, which is called Starlink. This is Elon Musk's low orbiting satellites that would give broadband to everywhere, where all of a sudden we don't need to be near a cell tower. We could be in the middle of Walhalla. We could be anywhere, and we're going to get broadband internet. That is going to be huge for communities like you. And yes, when I do webinars all around this country, I find a small town, because RVers, I don't want to be in the middle of Fargo or Grand Forks. We want to be out here. We want to be out here, but I'm looking for that makerspace. I'm looking for that WeWork space. I'm looking for those kinds of spaces for even us, and there's millions. There's a couple million people like that. So go ahead.
I was just gonna comment, like on your population comment. I've been told my whole life by just my mother, get out of Walhalla, get out of Dakota, go somewhere where there's opportunities to drawing in anything like tourism or jobs or anything like that. Like my brother doesn't want to leave, but my mom's scared that there isn't going to be anything here for him to make money or for living on, because we don't have as much as other businesses.
Right. So here's my question. We got all 4 of you here. Similar situation. Tell us about you guys. Would you ever come back here?
Yeah.
You would? Okay. And what do you think you would do? Okay, good. So she wants to go to banking, so there's great opportunity. But you'd like to come back. Okay? How about you? Same as her, okay. Are you guys just being really nice? Okay. How about you?
Marketing and advertising.
Okay? See, and this is the kinds of things that open up. Anybody, if you said, let's take Crossfire and make it into a little mini resort, and maybe we have some lodging, maybe we have some cabins, maybe we have an RV park, I don't even know how much room there is. you know, this is all pie in the sky. But then one of the first things we're doing is we want marketing director, we want a social media director. This is where they could come back and have opportunities in technology. See what I mean? And so these are good things. But what you said is what we've heard from a gazillion people that their parents are saying. This is where it's, when you grow up, it's like, you know, we're here and we're toughing it out, but boy, if you can give, there's greener pastures everywhere else. And that's too bad. I would give everybody a chance.
As a major senior citizen that's traveled all over the United States, you know, on bus tours, I can tell you wherever I am, somebody says, where are you from? North Dakota. And I never down North Dakota because I was born here and I love it. And
What do they say?
oh, so many of them, oh, we drove across North Dakota last summer, it's nothing but flat, ugly. I said, as I put in one of my poems, I live in the secret corner of the state, and it's the most beautiful town in North Dakota, and you should come and visit us sometime. It's like a walking, traveling thing. But we have to fight and claw and fight and do anything we can to get Walhalla and North Dakota known. People don't even know where North Dakota is. When my son taught out in Maine, a teacher said to him, let's see, you're from North Dakota, right? That's close to Idaho? No, he said, it's not close to Idaho. The guy didn't know even where North Dakota was.
And there's a little bit of a challenge that part of North Dakota is west, part of North Dakota is Midwest.
Right.
And so you have this identity crisis. But like you said, I mean, I've run into so many locals that say, when I'm from North Dakota, the people that they're talking to apologize.
Yes.
They apologize that you're in North Dakota.
I'm so sorry you live in North Dakota.
I have to tell you, I have to tell you that when we got here, I had never been north of Grand Forks. But people are judging your whole state by going up 29.
And that's what I'm talking
And
about.
if they don't go, or you know, or 94.
What do you see on I-94?
Yeah, I mean, until you get to the grasslands on the other side of the state, you're right, and they're judging you by that. And that's part lack of marketing, it's part of self-deprecation that, you know, but you're right, what you have here is flat out amazing. If people can discover what Walhalla has right next door, and even right here, they'd be shocked. And I had the same experience in Nelson County, it's phenomenal. Yet the whole county has like 3,000 residents. And so I think you're exactly right, that's the problem. And luckily for you, you don't sit there and say, yeah, I know it's really tough.
No.
She sits there and says, no, this is what you need to do. But that's pretty rare. Go ahead.
I'm in the North Dakota National Guard, and Walhalla, like, just at like a local drill where it's just kids from Grand Forks and like Grafton area, they've never heard of Walhalla. Like, when I'm asked where I'm from by drill sergeants, they're like, you're from where now? And then I've had stories from drill sergeants, when you're set down to basic, he says there's kids up there that he told them where he was from, and they thought Dakotas was one place.
Yes.
And
North
then,
and south.
They don't know.
and then, but on the
They don't
opposite
know.
hand, when you're sent out to basic, the first question that you will be asked by your drill sergeant is raise your hand if you're from North Dakota, because we produce the hardest workers and the best National Guard members in the country. We are known for that.
See, now, if you could get even you on camera, see, these are the kinds of things we need to hear that from you. And that's why I said, at this place, if there was ever a state that had resilient people, you know, I mean, that's it. And I think what makes North Dakota phenomenal is the people.
Sure it is.
And I have not met a person yet that, I've heard people be self-deprecating and saying, oh yeah, it's so tough here and everything. But I have not met one single person that I thought, oh my gosh, they scared me. I mean, we were in one town, down in Grand Forks County, where we were driving through town, and I have this big camera, and somebody came out from a tavern and said, what are you taking pictures of? Now that was like, okay, we'll write this off. But what happens is, when we came here, we secret shopped you. We came here, and we didn't say when we were gonna be in Walhalla or anything, but we were for hours on 3 different occasions. And when we were in some of your towns that didn't have in Walhalla, we'd have people like following us around or looking at us or like, you know, being kind of accusatory. But that's how simple it is for us to write off a community. Just say, not gonna live here. They're not welcoming. And there was a lot of that mentality. I mean, so what you just said, I mean, those are the kinds of stories that need to get out there. Yes,
I hope you're looking at me, the
I
lady.
am looking at you, yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm the old lady that walks, I live in the country and I walk 3-4 miles a day in the wintertime. So, and I'm also one who says we shoot ourselves in the foot on a regular basis. But we've heard all these things that we have not done and that we should be doing, but what is the bottom line? Where do we start?
So first of all, first of all, I think the state park system needs to invest some time and money into the Pembina Gorge. That's number one. I mean, Icelandic is fantastic. Turtle Creek down there, by the way, Larry says hi, Mike. I gave him a bad time for you. Okay? But you have some amazing state parks right here, you know. But Pembina Gorge, I thought was way, way underdeveloped. For instance, there's a sign there when you walk up the little hill that shows a car, a hiker. It doesn't show an ATV. It shows a picture of a car, a hiker, and a horseback. And then it says, watch out for, or mountain bikers, it says, watch out for pedestrians. Well, you know what? ATVs and pedestrians don't mix. And ATVs and horseback riders don't mix. There needs to be sets of trails for hikers, sets of trails for single track biking, and sets of trails for vehicles. See what I mean? When we were there, I mean, they've gone through, I mean, Mike, I think would, and correct me if I'm wrong, would love to say, man, I would take that one plus Icelandic. But trying to get somebody there to do something, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when we went, there's no toilet paper in the two houses, there was no brochures or map guides, it was all empty, and you have a great asset. So number one, I would say let's make that a better attraction, and you cannot mix these modes of transportation. It just, nobody wants to go hike in a place only to get run over by 3 or 4 ATVs. And the same thing with horseback riding. And so I think, number one, there needs to be more effort put into that. Because I gotta tell you, compared to Icelandic State Park and compared to Turtle Creek way down south, I thought Pembina Gorge was absolutely stunningly beautiful. We were there during fall color, but I was disappointed by the amenities. I was really disappointed. I didn't know where, there's maps on the board there, but they don't tell you how long the trail is, or where it goes, or anything. And so I was really disappointed. So that's number one. I think it's one of the state's best assets that's just underdeveloped, and Mike did a lot of this. But, you know, and by the way, as a state, how many state parks directors have you had in the last 5 years? Number 5. See what I mean? So we can't even get any consistency there. So that's number one. Number two, I think that Frostfire needs to have a plan. What do we want to be when we grow up? Right now, since it came under their foundation that runs it, or the nonprofit that owns it and runs it, right now, it's always been about putting out fires. You know, like replacing the lift, so you got a new lift there. You've got some new bikes there. But then I hear things like, well, we did do tubing, and then somebody went over an embankment, went in the tree, so we just canceled it. And I went, ah! And you can't do stuff like that. I mean, granted, we want to make it safer and everything. So I toured that whole thing. I think it needs a master development plan. What do we want to make it be, and how can we make it self-sustaining? You know, I think doing theater there gives you cultural depth. I think the potential there is unbelievable. And once again, I'm not trying to turn this, I wouldn't turn this into a major destination resort. I want it to be an intimate place and where you control the number of people that are using it. But there's no reason that couldn't be a year-round destination. It needs, and it also needs a business plan. Part of that business plan is, do we build lodging up there, or could we get private developers to build it in Walhalla? Because Walhalla wants to get the money, the tax base. And so when you do a master development plan, and then you say, okay, now, what about Walhalla? Are they open? And we're not telling Walhalla to go do all this work. We're just saying, would you be open to private development coming in, or upgrading hotels, adding another hotel, or even working with local businesses on increasing their revenues before we bring in other ones. If you have empty spaces, which every town does in their retail, what kind of businesses could go in there and how can we promote them specifically? So that we can help that. All of these things will create jobs. So number one is the gorge. At one point, I even said, why don't you concessionaire out the Pembina Gorge to whoever's running Crossfire and make it one bigger attraction. The state would still own it, it would still be open to the public, there's no charge for anything, but they could rent out ATVs or cross-country skis and be the concessionaire for that to expand this incredible attraction. I mean, these are just wild ideas we've been throwing out. And the question is, Walhalla has the most to gain in terms of tax base. Would it be open to that? Or are the people gonna be resistant and say, no, you know, we like it the way it is, we don't want those 200 or 300 people a day, we don't want, you know, the technology, we like it the way it is, that's why we're here, you know, and that's what we're trying to find. But I think those are the first two things, and the first three things is what do we do with Pembina Gorge, what do we do with Crossfire, let's get a plan. And I mean, there's a gazillion plans sitting on shelves gathering dust. You need to have a business plan. So that would attract private investment, not making everything public. And then Walhalla, what role does it want to play, if any? Yes.
When you say opening up the gorge, ATVs and all that, if you open up more than it is, what's it going to do to the habitat? What's it going to do to the gorge? The attraction is the gorge as it is.
Yes.
And the more you develop it, the more buildings are going to be there, the more trails. What's the impact going to have on what is attractive? Right. Is it going to be gone after a while?
No, and when I say develop, I never said develop the gorge. I don't think state parks would want to develop. I don't think you want to develop the gorge. What I think is that you could have a concessionaire that could rent cross-country skis, could rent kayaks and canoes when there's water in the river. That could be a concessionaire. But I wouldn't change the trails.
What I'm saying is the more people you introduce to the gorge by different means, what's it going to do to that?
That's why you need a plan. Because you may limit it. Even national parks around the country are limiting the number of visitors because they're getting overrun. So you may limit it, say we have a capacity of 100 or 200. And I think I think you make a really, really good point. And that's where you say and it could be that we only allow X amount or whatever, but that's why there's gotta be some kind of a plan of how to leverage this. But you're exactly right. If you start overrunning it, we're never gonna come back.
That could be a marketing plan, only so many people allowed there, everybody don't wanna go there right away. I don't know.
But in national parks, they're actually limiting how many people can go in, just so they don't lose its charm. You're right, one of the best things about this area is it's not overrun. And so I think that's a super valid point about making sure we don't lose who we are in this effort. And that's why I keep bringing up like 300 people, I don't know, but number one, you don't, even in skiing, nobody wants to go down the lift for 2 minutes and then wait in line for 15 minutes to get back up. See what I mean? And so you have to limit it. This is meant to be an intimate experience, not a mega resort. But that's a really good point.
And you can't have a ski run without it being cold, so that's part
That's
of it.
right. And they blow snow, and they can't blow snow if there's no water in the river. So we know that there's all kinds of things that
it has to be below 10 above in order to make snow.
Right. And right now, they take water out of the river, put it in the pond, and there's no water in the river to take out. So we understand there's all of these issues, but we gotta figure out a way to work through it. So we haven't heard from you back there.
So we moved to North Dakota about 1.5 years ago.
From?
I'm from North Carolina and he's from California.
Okay.
We moved to Walhalla in June. We were excited last year because we found Crossfire. And I was like, hey, sweet, I don't ski. They say that they offer tubing. Even on the North Dakota Tourism website, it says that Crossfire offers tubing.
Yep.
If they're not gonna offer it, then we need to make sure that the North Dakota Department of Tourism has the updated information.
Right.
And then another thing is, I'm a millennial, I'm 30. We don't read road maps. We rely on technology.
Right.
There's 2 cell towers here in Walhalla, I believe. One of them's a Verizon tower, the other one's an AT&T tower. Going down, I believe it's 32 going to 5, there's a dead spot for Verizon. We figured out where the spot is, that's fine. But as you go out to Crossfire, if you don't know where you're going and you can't read the maps and stuff, and you lose signal, you're, for lack of a better word, screwed. You don't know where you're going. And as someone with health problems, if I'm gonna go to Crossfire or I'm gonna go explore the gorge, and I don't have cell service, that's an issue for me, because then if something happens, I can't call for help. And that could deter people.
Yeah,
And not always does the map continue in offline mode when you lose signal.
And I gotta tell you, she brings up a good experience. We had no problem finding Crossfire because there's signs for Crossfire right here in town. But all they say is Crossfire. We didn't even know what Crossfire was. We had no idea whether it was an ice cream shop or anything because it doesn't say anything. And if you drive up to Crossfire, you follow the signs there, you have a gate that's closed, but it doesn't say that we're a ski area or a terrain park or anything. You just don't even know what it is. Now, but here's what we did. I gotta tell you that we used navigation system. So I said, Siri, take us to Pembina Gorge Recreation Area. It took us 4 miles away from the gorge. It doesn't even take you to the gorge. Even the Apple and Google Maps are not correct on Pembina Gorge, and Crossfire hasn't even claimed its Google listing. You know, it hasn't even done the very simplest things, and these are all things they're going to work on. But you're absolutely right. I mean, these are all things that play into the mix.
Just a comment on the positive things that we have going. You know, work with Choice Financial, so we're really looking and interested in, you know, transition of ownership of businesses. We've had some transition over the last 7-8 years. So we are able to attract young people back. We've got people that grew up here, went to school here, maybe left for a while, and they are moving back. So keep that in mind, you know, that we need work on it, but there is an interest here. We've got young people moving back. The ability to work remotely is going to help us. So what, as you say, you know, the big thing that people are looking for is safety, quality of life. I think that's what we really have to concentrate and cultivate, because, you know, Waters Restaurant, we've got new ownership. The Walhalla, you know, new young owners that have taken over. You can look around the airport, you know, there's a new young owners in there. Blue Soul, a new business attracted. Grocery store, new owners.
Coffee shop.
So, yeah, new coffee shop coming in. So it's happening, it's working. So keep the attitude that, yes, we've not developed what we need to do to the fullest extent, but people are coming back and want to be here. You know, older people that may have to sell their home or want to make a move, maybe simplify, downsize. We need people here to buy their homes. Are they going to give their homes away or not be able to sell them? So it's working for us to a degree. There's so much more we could do.
And I want to add to that, because, and for any of you that have any connections with any of them, the thing that breaks my heart the most is when I see another farmyard that's demolished and the water's turned off, or they have, you know, there's no rural water there anymore, there's no electricity anymore, and it makes it so expensive for somebody to have a place where they can have chickens and horses, and their kids can run all day, and they don't have to worry about where they are, because it's just the coolies and coyotes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, one thing you have to understand about the millennial generation is that when they have kids, first of all, fathers of the millennial generation spend twice as much time with their kids as us boomers did. Number 2, they're far more diverse. Number 3, they're the most educated generation in history. And number 4, people say, oh, millennials want to live in downtowns. Not so fast. They're just like every other generation. But they would love an area where when I grew up, it was like, be home by dinner. In the urban areas now, it's like, don't leave my sight. See what I mean? And so people, they crave that, and even the younger generations are craving that. Yes?
I know Cavalier, I don't remember what year it was relatively close, but They set up just that can on their main street, and they attract so much attention. They had thousands of people watching it today, commenting, I wish I lived somewhere like that. I'd love to live in a small town where I wouldn't have to worry about my kids. And they drew so many people in, and homes going up for sale and being bought.
I have to tell you, that of the 42 communities that we've been in, the one that has had the most attendance, the most feedback, and is the most positive of all 42, including Grand Forks, was Cavalier. I mean, I am so impressed by their attitude, what they're doing, even their Halloween decorations and pumpkins and how they have these contests. I mean, I've never, in all the 42 communities, the attitude there was just like, wow. And you're right, and then people hear that attitude or they see it and they just go, I wanna be here. And that's what we need other communities to do, so we have that same feeling, but you're absolutely right, yeah.
I just want to make one last comment.
Sure.
You know, as somebody who isn't a resident here yet, I probably, I feel a little bit, cautious in saying these things, but, I don't feel like tourism is going to keep my kids here. As they move here, and I've got, 5 kids that would be moving with me. They want opportunity, and I think that's what we're hearing, and I think there's no better time right now. For the first time in human history, we now have the ability to produce an enormous amount of wealth as an individual working remotely.
Yeah.
I'm an example of it. I work up at my house while I'm here. If people can get an opportunity to learn and make money now, high school students can do it. Move on, if they want to explore the world, that's great, but as that wealth builds, and if wealth is the number one thing that helps us in this economy, I just think building out something that takes advantage of these new opportunities in the job market is critical.
There's businesses like us, we're like you, we can be anywhere. We don't have customers counters, we can be anywhere we want to be. And there are gazillions, there are tens of thousands of businesses, and they don't want to be in the urban areas. They want to be where it's affordable, where there's recreation. And that is what all these Zoom towns, you could be the next Zoom town, and that came from Zoom, because, quite frankly, I'm zoomed out. But for anybody, even like us, we can be wherever we want to be. And particularly when Starlink comes up, by the way, there's 500,000 people that are beta users of Starlink. When that goes live in less than a year, it's gonna really open you up for anybody could work anywhere regardless of cell towers. And it will be affordable. And so that's gonna really open up. So what they're doing is looking for the place that has the best recreation, good schools, health system. We're looking for quality of life. We're looking for, we wanna be engaged, we wanna be part of it. And that's the feeling we had in Cavalier. There were 2 communities that really stood out, and it was Cavalier and Park River. Those 2 communities just really stood out to us as somebody secret shopping there. Even Jake back there, sitting next to Jacob, the 2 Jakes, is from Wisconsin. And even he came out and secret shopped the area, and he could tell you his experience, which it's pretty good. But now he's trying to convince his girlfriend to move out, and she has that, it's North Dakota, right? Am I right? And he's having a hard time convincing her, And so, but he came out here, you came out here, didn't you?
Yep. With Don, drove me out to Frostfire, checked everything out.
Yeah, and for him, it's like, whoa, right? It was like, wow, look at what you have here.
But his secret shopping trip was told at lunch, it would be crazy to move here. And I begged him to come back and give him a tour. And it was Crossfire, I believe, that really helped tip the scale to attract new employees.
So, yes.
Your focus has been primarily on the Gorge and Crossfire. What's your impression of the downtown?
I think, first of all, I think your downtown has tremendous potential because it's an intimate setting. I really think it's a nice, intimate setting. One of the problems with all of these towns is they are stark and bare. There's no beautification, there's no benches with flowers. There's a couple businesses that do that. Like the Chamber, they do a little bit there. But it was kind of stark bare. I couldn't tell who was in business, who wasn't. Even here, I couldn't tell, and except for their open sign, I couldn't tell, are you in business or not? There's so many retail, you know, we're in the age of Amazon. And so many retail businesses are shut down. So there's many businesses I took pictures of that I could tell they were in business, but I couldn't tell who was open, who was not. I think like the Walla Theater, I keep calling it Walla Walla because that's Walla Walla, and I'm from Washington State where there's Walla Walla, Washington. And as a matter of fact, you know what they say? It's so good we had to name it twice. But I think, and that's why I think Walla Walla could be a great hub. I think you have a nice, intimate downtown. The thing that impressed me, I thought that downtown had tremendous potential. I don't think it's realized yet. You need some paint, you need some beautification. Beautification can work 12 months a year. I looked at reviews of the hotel on the way out, and they weren't good, and nobody responds to the reviews or even says we're working on making it better. So I saw something, but like is it a senior center? Beautiful. I love the fact that you can come here and basically age in place. Means you don't have to live. I did see the clinic, and I went, yes. The school, I mean, those things looked good. And so for us, we had a good first impression. I thought that downtown, I mean, first of all, and if I remember right, you have like 50% downtown is vacant. So how do we fill those back up? And I don't know that you have enough locals to support getting your retail back. Thus, could we bring in 100 people a day extra that would be in your restaurants and stuff to start bringing that back? But at the end of the day, you know, there's a reason. I used to teach for Disney Institute. There's a reason they have a downtown Disney outside each of their parks. It's to get this money, because the number one activity, like I said earlier, is shopping and dining and entertainment, like a movie theater or a performing arts or even a little plaza the size of this room, is where 80% of their spending takes place. So if they're coming for the Gorge, if they're coming for Crossfire, or they're coming for any other things around here, golf, whatever it is, their number one activity is going to be in your downtown, and that's where 80% of the spending is. And that's why they developed downtown Disney outside of each of the parks, to get that 80%. That's the potential for your downtown. And heck, if you had 50 people a day more in your downtown, and remember, visitors, we're here to eat in your restaurants. Your locals don't eat in every restaurant every night. They'll do it on special occasions or once a week or something. This will help keep them alive, and that's what we're trying to look for. Tourism is just the beginning. It's the quickest, easiest way to leverage your assets. Our goal is to have better, higher-end jobs, more technology, more of those things that your high school could use, you know, that your students would want to get them to come back. So tourism is just the beginning. It's just the quickest, fastest, easiest way to showcase what you have. But I think your downtown has tremendous amount of potential. Yes?
Another thing that we as a town need to work on, I've gone to school in Park River, in Cavalier, and here. I have 5 younger siblings that chose to go to Cavalier instead of Walhalla, and this is something specifically the school needs to work on, is getting those extracurricular programs into here, because that's also what people look for when they want to move to a town. That's why so many people choose Cavalier over Walhalla, is because they have things like FBLA, they have better sports programs, they have all this extra stuff. Park River too. Heck, Park River goes all the way to Grafton just for some shop class and extra EMT classes. If we can get stuff like that in our community, we're more likely to draw people in with younger kids who want to stay here and raise their kids here.
And is anybody here from the schools? How many seniors do you have, do you know?
15.
15.
Yeah.
Okay. Just so you know, I graduated in class of 30. So I get small schools, not small. Do you know how many people, does anybody know how many people you have like in first grade?
Yeah.
Like 3 kids?
No,
There's more than that, because
No.
I have 5 of them in my religion ed
Yeah,
class.
second grade's our smallest class,
Yeah.
7 kids. I'm the
7
last.
kids. And Mike, what'd you say?
Yeah, second grade has.
Okay, so you know what that tells me? Because I'll tell you what, we were in Lakota, and I saw the school superintendent. I said, how many people do you have as seniors? He said 17. I said, how many people do you have in first grade? He said 26. That's what you want to hear. But when I hear you have 7 in 7th grade, and I don't know how many are in first grade, that means you have an aging population and your young families aren't coming back. And so a school to create the activities you want as a senior, they're going, but our second graders, there's only 7 of them. We're not gonna spend any money on those because we don't have enough, we're losing our school district population. I mean, you're lucky you're lucky you have a school. Many communities, I've been in many of these 40 communities where there's empty schools. You know, they're closed down. But you're absolutely right. So what you gotta do is you gotta start, if you have, you know, how many seniors did you say you had? 15. So we have 15, but if you had 20 people in second or third or first grade, all of a sudden the school district says, now I see that there's hope for the future, so let's give our seniors more programs because we're gonna have more kids growing up into it. But you're absolutely right. And here's the next question. Do you want to grow your population? I mean, as a town, do you want to grow your population? Because that's what that means. And that means, do we need to build more homes, or do we have some starter homes? How do we do that? Or do we have enough homes right now that are empty, or do we have enough seniors moving out so that we can repopulate with younger people? I mean, these are questions you have to ask yourself, and they're questions we need to know so we can help you.
One last comment.
Yes.
So where does this all start at? I mean, you say the Crossfire needs a business plan.
Yes.
Does this all generate from the city, and the city has to put a plan together? You know, how did Cavalier become and Park River become those star cities that you visited? What drove that?
So,
where does it start?
I'll tell you from my perspective, is, first of all, I had a girl come up to me, and she goes, Roger, you know, we do these grants to beautify downtown, we have, you know, energy grants, our local hardware store took advantage of it, and his sales went up 20%. She goes, we have all these programs, but at a city council meeting, somebody says, I don't know why we're doing all of these. We can spend our money doing other stuff. And she goes, could you help me out? She handed me her business card. It was Kelly, the city administrator. You know, she's gonna be, she's due in December. And I just went, oh my God, somebody here that's under 60 years old, and no offense, I'm part of that older crowd. And then I met their mayor. I mean, and then we did the workshop at Icelandic, and all of a sudden she brought a bunch of kids like you guys. She brought a bunch of high school. There was like 4 or 5 girls there, and I don't know, there were no guys in their group, and so and she said afterwards, the mayor said she took them back to school, and they were just like, oh, we want to do this and this and this and this and this. They're empowering them. But then we hear in some, and the same in Park River, but then we hear in some towns that, you know, could we have some time on your city agenda? Nope. You know, or would you, you know what, we're gonna give you 5 minutes, come on, your time's up. So we hear some of those rumors, and I'm not gonna say where or who, but all of a sudden we start hearing that, and I haven't, so what we hear is those rumors. And remember, if I came here as an investor, I would be hearing those rumors, and I would probably say, yeah, I don't know if I want to do Walhalla. But to answer your question, anybody who does a plan for Frostfire has to spend 50% of that effort in Walhalla, because without Walhalla, it can't work, or it has to be totally standalone. So so whoever you contract with, I don't think Walhalla needs a plan. Walhalla wants, what anybody that's going to invest in Frostfire needs to do is, how can we leverage the people in Walhalla for workforce, for dining and shopping? There's no room up there to put a bunch of restaurants and stuff. It needs to be Walhalla. So that plan that they do for Frostfire is going to very much include Walhalla. It has to. You know, and if Walhalla, now here's the other side of it. If Walhalla says, or the general attitude is, Frostfire can do its thing, we don't want to be a part of it, then what we would do, if I was doing that plan, I'd go right over to Cavalier and say, do you want to be part of Frostfire? And we'll have people drive through Walhalla, and that would be our bookends. So I don't think Walhalla has to come and do its plan. I think whoever's going to do a plan, a master development plan for Walhalla, and even for the Pembina Gorge, you're still a huge part of it. You are the base camp. You are the provisioning. This is where we provision up for the day. This is where we buy our groceries. This is where everything we do is Walhalla. And if Walhalla says, nah, no thanks, then I would probably go to Cavalier. Yes.
I'm gonna throw another thing in there, Pimina Gorge and Crossfire are in Cavalier County. And
Yes.
I'm sorry you hadn't, that Cavalier,
I know.
Langdon, North Dakota was not part of
I
the
know.
visitation, because I think in many, many ways, Cavalier and Langdon are very much alike.
And we heard that a lot.
Not necessarily in the age of the people who are running
Right.
stuff, but most definitely in amenities. And so,
Economically progressive.
for all of you here, I think it's not just a Walhalla contingent, but I would think that we would want to include Langdon with that.
Well,
because
yes.
That's the county seat
I agree.
where we sit.
And by the way, when it comes to visitors, nobody cares about the county lines. I mean, have you ever gone anywhere and said, whoa, there's a county line, turn around quick. So you're absolutely, that Langdon should, and I've heard from a lot of people, Langdon would need to be part of this as well. And that brings me to the next thing is, if Walhalla says no, then maybe we focus on Langdon. Because maybe they're like Cavalier. Now remember, I haven't been to Langdon. So because Cavalier County wasn't part of this.
Yeah, but they are a part of the Rendezvous region.
They are part of the Rendezvous region, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Roger, this is more for Pat and Frostfire, because I want to learn how to ski, because I can't ski, I don't know how to snowboard.
And it's
But I
perfect.
could sure as heck jump on an inner tube and take a hubcap down a mountain and get covered in snow. But at the same
That
time,
hubcap, I'm not so sure.
well, it's a
No,
plastic
I'm
shield
just
that you
kidding.
sit on.
I'm just.
But the point I'm making is, I looked at the 3 closest resorts to us. Competitively speaking, I can get a season pass at any one of those for my family for half the price of Frostfire, and it'll be cheaper for me to stay there for a weekend with a season pass, feed my family, than to go stay at Frostfire, or to stay in town and go to Frostfire. I would suggest for Frostfire, if you want local people to come and visit more often, keep your prices the same, offer a discount for the locals.
Yes, and just whoever does a master development plan and a business plan for Frostfire would take that into consideration. Yes, even a Whistler Resort and Copper Mountain, the ski resorts we did, the locals got it for like 25%.
Right.
Because we always did that. You always, and by the way, the #1 reason people travel is visit friends and family.
And
And
Hawaii's the
so
same
it would
thing for
even
percentage.
extend to them if they came with their family.
Hawaii's the same thing for you, because Hawaii itself, the whole state's a tourist trap. They have massive amounts of tourism. If you have a Hawaii identification card and you show it when you buy an item at any of the local stores, 25% off, minimum.
Yeah. And so, yeah, those are all things that have to be in this. But that's why, and by the way, if you want private investment, we're not asking the city of Walhalla or anything to do anything. This is about really creating private enterprise. This is jobs. So this is private development coming in to do some of these things. And they all know that, because your workforce has to be local. I mean, people, they might go as far as Cavalier, but I mean, driving out here from Grafton every day to work at one of these would be pretty much of a stretch. It's a good hour drive, and so you want the workforce to be here. And so, yeah, but those are all things that would be in that plan. That's why you need to have a plan. Right now, I gotta tell you that the people doing Frostfire, #1, have their heart in the right place, and #2, they're busy fixing things, like getting snow guns, snow blowers, like putting in the new lifts. I mean, and you do need the infrastructure to be ready, but you're now at a point where we're starting to fix things and get them ready, but now what we need to figure out is how can we generate more revenue? And that doesn't mean, so what if we don't have a ski season because there's no snow this winter? We need to tell people. I gotta tell you, we went there on a Sunday after they were closed this fall, like a couple weeks ago. We went there on a Sunday, and Dustin and Patty were there, and they opened the gate for us. We went up to the top and we're doing a tour, and while we were there, there was a chain of cars coming up there. There were people driving there from Thompson, Grand Forks to have lunch, and it was closed.
Yeah, it's in trouble, yeah.
And on Google, they haven't claimed the Google listing, it says they're open that Sunday. And so Patty was going out there and saying, I am so sorry you just drove 2 hours or more to come here for lunch and we're closed. I mean, there's no consistency. Even now, there's just no consistency, and nobody knows when, or I don't even know if you would know when or if they're even open. And so those are the kinds of things that need to be fixed. So there's some things that are short-term things that need to be fixed, but then overall, it needs a plan. And that plan needs to include Walhalla, it might need to include Langdon, and it needs to obviously include state parks. I mean, this is all one thing. It's not like 3 separate plans and 3 separate things. We've got to get everybody and find out, well, who wants to be a part of this? What can we leverage? Do your local businesses want more business even? Yes?
All of that plan you're talking about, you gotta have a workforce, which is people.
Yes.
You said
Absolutely.
throughout the United States, all 50 states has encountered the same shortfall. Not
Yes.
enough people to work.
Right.
Now, I don't know if there's not enough people that don't want to work, I don't know that, or if there just isn't enough people to work. So the solution to all of this problem is people.
Yes.
We need people here.
Yes.
The only way we can get people here is either the families that have children stay here or make it enticing enough
We're
for
coming back.
other people to want to live here.
Yes.
But no matter what, it depends on how many people we can get.
That's right. And that's
That
where
will
quality of
work.
life comes in.
That's when what?
Quality of life. Anybody's gonna come here and say, I could live anywhere, why would I take Walhalla? And so they're gonna judge you on these things. And you're absolutely right, it comes down to people. And there are enough people, it's just that they have so many choices, you know, of where they could go. And by the way, there are more ghost towns happening in the United States today than ever before in US history. You're not one of them, but if you ever go down 81 to RDOT, there's a perfect example. And I can name probably 10 of your 42 communities are down to 20 people, and most of the houses are falling down and everything. I don't think you have that risk, but you gotta say, wow, I wanna live there because of what you have. Now, I've done a lot of work in resorts where we actually created on-site housing for workers. But generally, those are for seasonal workers. We're trying to get you not to get seasonal workers. You know, we're trying to get people to live here and make this a year-round place where they can recreate. It changes by season. You know, obviously, from skiing to mountain biking to whatever, hiking to ATVing, whatever it is, river rafting, canoeing, kayaking, all of those things that you have, if we get water in the river. And so you're absolutely right. It's number one, we gotta see people wanna live here, and then number two, we gotta figure out where are the housing for them? Where do we house them so that they're not earning the money here and taking it back to Cavalier or wherever they're coming from? Yes?
One comment is, I'm really sad. It saddens me that 80% of America never passed 5th grade geography. Personally, because it bothers me when they don't know where North Dakota is. Everybody went to 5th grade, I'm assuming, most people. Number two, for you young people and for any business in Walhalla, I think you know, there is funding available for business development if you want it. It is available, and you partner with the regional council. The Pembina County JDA has helped fund almost every business in the county. So funding is available, because everybody always talks about where's the money come from, where do I get the money, where's the funding. For cities that need infrastructure development, there are probably 80% grants for most of the infrastructure development that you need to do. And yes, you gotta come up with the 20%, but it's workable. I mean, sometimes you might have to partner 3 different agencies together, which has been done, and you can get it done. Number two, remember, snow is sexy.
A couple of things is whether you agree with it or not. I mean, a lot of people think we're bankrupting the country with these $1 trillion stimuluses. But as long as that money's there, you should take advantage of it. And that's number one. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's there. And so you just gotta take advantage of it. And I think that's really important.
It's something more, it's a conglomeration of it. Obviously from the high school, we don't have the shop classes that I came out with, because I came out of an inner city. I purposely moved here because of one, of the job, and two, I was tired of people getting shot out of my front door. We averaged one shooting a day in the community that I was in. We had 5 people murdered in front of my doorstep. So, but with it, that's the reason why I came. But with Frostfire, they need seasonal housing. The students need shop classes to learn trade schools. Tiny homes is a very simple trailered structure. You don't have to use a trailer, but if the high school students want to learn a trade, you have carpentry, electrical, and plumbing. They take the trade school I went to when I was in high school was 2 hours a day. They would go from high school, 2 o'clock till 4, go to Frostfire and work on tiny homes. So you'd have a seasonal 1-bedroom toilet and a kitchenette at Frostfire. So now they're learning a trade. Frostfire gets seasonal homes, and everybody learns something. Everybody's working together. But that's, everybody has to work together.
And of course, what comes first is people, back to what he said. What comes first is getting people here. If you had 25 people in 2nd grade, the school would say, I think we need to invest in that. But right now, if I was a school superintendent or principal, I'd be going, and I don't know what's in 1st grade, 3rd grade, I'm just, but I'd be going, I'm not so sure we can afford to invest in exactly what they need, because we have a declining young population. And so you do need people here, and then you're absolutely right, those are all those things that could happen.
Well, with it, instead of having the school pay for it, Frostfire needs the housing for their seasonal workers.
Oh, no question on that. Yeah.
So Frostfire can front the cost of the tools, the equipment, and the materials, and the school can help either partition with Cavalier or one of the other permanent schools and say, hey, we need a shop teacher that can teach basic, basic construction skills. And so it'll work together.
There's one thing I want to mention, and we still have we only have till 11. But there's one thing that I want you to understand, is that anybody that's looking to move here, the first thing they're gonna do is go to your city website. Does it look dated? Does it look modern? Does it promote the city as a place to live? And the second thing they will look at is your council. They will look at your mayor, they will look at your elected officials, and where they stand on growth, tourism, any of this is how they're gonna judge it for everybody. And in many of these towns, that has been a problem. I had the mayor in one of these towns just the other day going like this while I was talking. Didn't want to hear it. And so you've got to take it, those are the two that we're going to go to a city website. And we're going to say, does it look like a modern place? Does it have great photographs of this area? Does it sell the quality of life, not just municipal services? And then number 2 is we read, people will go to the web and they'll see what happens at city council meetings. They will read some things about you. Where does your council stand if we wanted to move there? We will judge you by your city council regardless of whether you want growth or tourism or not as a business community. And so Don even asked me, so do we work around a council if, and I'm not saying you, but do we work around a council? And I said, you can't. They're the ones who apply for grants. They're the ones who sign the checkbook. They're the ones who set policy. Council members are set policy. They're the ones who really see that. And if we say, sorry, we can't help you, then sometimes some of these towns, not necessarily here, some of these towns need to elect people that are supportive of change. And I say without change, you die. Without change, you die. It doesn't mean you have to sell your soul, no. And that's what we call responsible change, and so that's, go ahead.
I think after all this discussion about what we could do, I think we should think about one thing that has been done, and that is our theater. It went from being empty, and when Donnie and I were courting, we'd go to Park River, Langdon, and Walhalla to movies, different places, and no one was nicer than Walhalla. It was beautiful. It shut down, this group took over, and now it smells great in there, it looks great. We have a wonderful theater, and I think we should all really be proud of that.
The group that did it.
Yes.
Is amazing.
But here, and I will, here's one thing you need to know, when we see shop you. I took pictures of the theater, I showed it in the presentation. I didn't know if it was ever open or anything. I mean, I could see where you're raising money, the thermometer. But on the other side, it talks about, was it Walhalla Community Players or whatever, but there was no scheduled events, there was no, so I didn't know that it smelled nice, that it was nice. For us, it looked like it had been closed for decades. So I just gotta let you know that sometimes we judge the book by the cover, fair or not. But those are things that should have a little video, that a 2-minute video that just says, you know, that, boy, we have this theater, we're really working on it, we're turning it around, here's some cool things that shows cultural depth. Those are those little things we need to see. When we secret shopped you, we couldn't tell whether you were a dying town or a town on the rise. And it was obvious in Cavalier more than it was in Walhalla. And no offense, I'm just telling you honestly, it's somebody from the outside.
I'd like to also mention something that's a recent development is the new community center. And
I took pictures of that, just
yeah, that's
very
the
nice.
Assembly Church put it together, but it's for the community. And the biggest challenge we have right now wasn't putting it together. It's to get the community to know that it's there and the community to use it. And we're working on that.
And for people to know that it's not just Assembly of God people, it's for everybody.
For the community.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
I think a great example of just not it's not even a town, but like my grandma, she moved back from Kansas to Gardner, North Dakota. It's 10 houses. And when they moved there was nobody there on the weekends. They have a frisbee golf course.
Yeah.
There was nobody
Just-
there. This year, they opened up the bar, they finished up the hall. I'm there like every other weekend and I never not see people there. My Uncle Tom opened up 2 camp spots. There, and he built bathrooms down there. There's always people on the frisbee golf course. There's always people camped out. There's always people at the bar. And it's not even
Well, and I always say, the success of any community comes down to a few pioneers. They're investing money on the hope that for the future that they can make money with it. See what I mean? Those are pioneers. They're taking a chance on you. And that's how, that's how all these towns were founded in the first place. So, any other last comments from anybody?
I hear a lot of there's funding for this, there's funding for that, will help new businesses get started. I've been doing shirts with my house for the last at least 7 years. We wanted to open a storefront in Cavalier, couldn't get anyone to call us back. We moved here in June when we closed on the house. Wanted to open a storefront here. We got in contact with Frank, he's interested in renting to us once he gets the Highway 32 diner finished. We tried finding out how to apply for grants to get the things that we need, and we can't get people to contact us back. We've asked for resources, and where do we start? Like, if you're wanting new business, if you're wanting growth, the people are here that want to do it, but if every time we try and do it, we hit a brick wall, we're gonna eventually quit trying.
And I don't know, I mean, you could certainly even call John's office, Red River Regional Council, Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development.
I did, and I didn't get a call back. I've tried calling several times.
And so, yeah, those are all things that, are you welcoming or not? You know, and I gotta tell you, out of our 42 towns, most of the towns were like, who are you and why would you be here? I've even had people say, I've been here for 30 years and I don't know what it's gonna take for me to become a local. You know? And so I think there is some of that. Yeah, that is pervasive. And so, but that's, those are all those things. If other people have the same experience, are they ever gonna come here? One thing that's really important, in the old days, it would take 20 years for you to be known for something. That was what we call branding, what gets you to stand out. Nowadays, it's 24 months because social media can make or break you pretty quick. And that's why you have to deliver, I always say you deliver on the promise. But overall, bottom line of this whole meeting is I think Walhalla has a tremendous opportunity to elevate itself beyond even what Cavalier can do. You know, and granted, they got Icelandic right there, I mean, you have so much potential. Do you want it? And we need to see that on the websites. We need to see that, yes, we invite people here. We want new businesses here. We embrace responsible tourism. That's really important to put, responsible but sustainable. So it's not just 2 months, it's how do we get and you may say, our goal as city, we'd love to see 100 visitors a day, 300 days a year here, spending money in our businesses, staying in our hotels, and enjoying our assets. We're good with that. We do not want it over. I mean, those are the kinds of things that the outside world wants to hear, to say, maybe there's an opportunity for me here. I want to live there. I want to start a business there. I want to bring my kids there. And I think that you have a tremendous possibility. I think that working with the state park is going to be really important for Pembina Gorge. Just leaving it like it is not going to be sustainable. On the other hand, Crossfire, same thing. And Walhalla needs to be part of that. If not, maybe it's Lang. People keep telling me about Langdon, I gotta go there. You know,
It's about time.
What's that?
I said it's about time.
Yeah, I know.
Just for clarity, they opted out. Just so
Well,
they
yes.
were invited.
They didn't want it, yeah, we asked them, but once again, we'll only help those who want to be helped. So,
There is one other thing that I've always.
and I want to talk, and we'll let your neighbor talk after you.
Okay, we have not talked at all about historical, educational, in terms of, about what is here in our community. Walhalla being the second oldest town in the state, not with Lewis and Clark, but from the north and the east that we were settled in. And we have
Right.
all this information, we have these historical places here, and I think that somebody who's 75 or 80 and has a walker and comes with their grandkids because they want to teach them about the heritage of the area. We've not talked about that at all.
And that is something that we've done. Having been in all 4 counties extensively, we have probably run into, and I don't think this is an exaggeration, 100 historical attractions, museums, historical sites. And we only, in all 4 counties, there were 2 that were open. Icelandic and across the street from them, 2. So if music, but we would love to see a Rendezvous Region history trail. And what happens is with the museum, these are volunteers. And so maybe they're only open on Saturdays from 10 to 2, from April through October. By the way, boomers, they're peak months for travel. This whole Memorial Day to Labor Day is a myth. That ended 30 years ago. Boomers' peak months for travel are April, May, September, and October. So if these museums were at least open one day, we could do a history trail that people could go from town to town. But right now, when I go town to town, everything's locked up, or it's by appointment only. And nowadays, and when you list a bunch of phone numbers without the area code. You know, you don't need to put the 70. And by the way, we're not gonna call, we're visitors, we're already there, we're not gonna set an appointment and come back a week later. See what I mean? And so that's a challenge, but yes, I think your history is, and by the way, it's not just older generation, there are a ton of millennials and younger people that wanna learn about the history, as long as you're telling stories and not displaying artifacts. I always say avoid 3 words, artifacts, collections, and who donated it.
Yeah.
We want to know the story behind it. And once you start telling stories, you're going to get people that want to come of all ages. So, ma'am, you're right.
Yes,
Go for it.
One of the things I heard when we moved to Walhalla is, well, Walhalla's at the end of the line. So is Winkler.
So is Medora.
Yeah, well, yes, look at
Winkler's 25 miles or 20 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, but look at the Winkler, how they have grown over the years. And why not for Walhalla, I ask? Just because the line ends there, the road ends there, and so forth. Maybe we need to look at ourselves and give ourselves, say, what have I done to help Walhalla grow? Have I given some time and talent to that? We're all called to use our time and our talents for the best of mankind, womankind, for gender, right? But anyway, but there is that, but we need to get together and say, okay, let's work at this, and let's get some committee together or something that we can talk about this stuff and generate some ideas, get some committees, do whatever it takes to make Walhalla a destination, because we have the potential here to do that.
And you just hit it dead on, what you just said. When you're at the end of the road, you need to be the destination, not the pass-through. When I see communities that say, we're the gateway, I go, great, gateways are what we pass through to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
See what I mean? And so you're absolutely right. In our workshops that we did, we think, we would believe that Walhalla needs Destination Walhalla team. The Destination Walhalla team. When I say destination, I'm not talking about just tourism. I'm talking about destination as a place to live, a destination we'd want to invest in, and a destination we'd want to visit. And more than passing through. And it could be part Chamber of Commerce. It would usually have some, obviously would have somebody from the city council, somebody from the city, citizens at large, historical society, if you have a garden club. It's what it is, it's a group of people locally that represent everybody. Your larger employers, State Park, Crossfire. All of these, you'd have everybody, so you get everybody on the same page pulling in the same direction. And you meet like once a month, say, what can we do? Don't meet for the sake of meetings. We want doers, not directors. And everybody plays a role. And I think you're absolutely right. You need that team, and I would call it the Destination Walhalla team. How do we make this place more desirable for people to live, invest in, and visit? And then that team would, and then if us as outsiders saw that you had a team that was working together to make it more inviting for investors, then we're gonna go to that team and we're gonna say, we wanna be a part of this. So it might include, if you have a public works department or a parks department or whatever you have at City Hall, and those are the people that need to be on that, the Destination Walhalla team. And I call it a team, not a committee. It always seems like committees never get anything done. They meet for the sake of meetings and then they go home. And so I'm all about a team, and these are people that will donate 2 to 4 hours a month, maybe 2 hours for a meeting, and then 2 hours to actually do something. Whether it's like over in Cavalier, they decorate the entire town for Halloween. Those are those little things people go and they go, this is a really cool place. Those are the kinds of little things. And by the way, when I even did the presentation, which will be out on video, and you can see it, it has all of Pembina County, but there's sections for each town. But there, I think when you see that, I think it'll give you some light and some direction to that. But we want to see it from the city, and then if you had that destination team, then those are the two people we want to talk to as outsiders that want to invest or move here. So, and with that, any other last comments?
Yeah, I have to go to an all-company meeting right now, so, but I would like to say that I've got a couple of business cards here. I would love to continue the conversation about, growing the city, because I'm interested in that. So if you want to talk about, because I think there's an incredible opportunity right now. I do agree this is one of the greatest cities.
And if anybody, I also brought business cards. And if you want one of mine, you want to email me directly and say, here's my input, that you didn't want to provide in front of 50 people. And by the way, this is awesome to see this many people here. We were expecting maybe 5 people. But to see the community take such an interest in your community, I think is really incredible. So if you want one of these, you can come and grab one, and it's got my email address.
Just a couple of closing comments too. With our Project with Roger, we also have a subscription to Roger's vast library of webinars. On any of these topics, he's got educational materials on how would we do that? How would we go about that? We have access to that library. All of you can have access to that library for the next year.
And by the way, it all streams, just like I call it Netflix for communities. And it's got workshops on everything, like downtown beautification for businesses, signage, all of these things. There's on every topic you can imagine. So,
I just really want to thank all of you for coming out, because honestly, we weren't sure if it's 3 people or 10. But I'm I'm really touched by all of you. I told Roger on the way up here, I don't know why I do this work. We have to hit our head against the wall every day. It kind of hurts after a while. I'll be in this for 30 years next year, and all of this work is a heavy lift. Frostfire, heavy lift. I'm on my 8th year of working on Frostfire, and Pat can attest, Elsie can attest. It's heavy lifting. I'm really excited to share, as a foundation, we're able to attract grants that the Johnsons, quite frankly, couldn't get as private business owners. So part of that model is we were able to secure a donor as well as state funds to put in a new chairlift. We secured $900,000 out of the legislative session this year for new snowmaking infrastructure. Part of the catch was we need your 20% so we can leverage 80% from the feds, because with all of this disaster money, we're hoping at the end of the month we'll be able to share that the feds have just approved over $3 million for Frostfire. So we can do what might seem impossible, is my point. We can do these things, we can do the hard work, and the money is out there. And we're happy to help, we're happy, but we can only help those who want to help themselves too. So if your community wants to rally, we're all in. We're also under contract to be the Pembina County JDA staff. I'm truly sorry if you can get all back. And if it was in the last week, I just even had a chance to catch it.
It was the past 6 months.
Yeah. But I truly don't recall a message, so I just wanted you to know, we're here and we want to support you. Myself or the Jakes over there are here. We also have 1% loan dollars we're trying to get out. Part of the federal money was, oh, here's $1.2 million. Our board has opted to provide 1% loans to do any of these kinds of projects that you're talking about. Pat and Travis, actually Pat was pretty excited because most of the loans we have done already have been in partnership with Trust Bank. So you've got credible local leadership on the finance end. But the Pembina County JDA is providing storefront improvement grants. We want the cities to match those grants that have sales tax. That's kind of a sticking point in Walhalla. So it's hard for the JDA even to say, we want to keep investing in your community when your community doesn't want to invest in yourselves. So it gets a sticking point when it gets back to the board level. Why should we provide grants for Main Street? Walhalla can't be on that. So I appreciate the candor today and the ability to just kind of lay all this on the table, because honestly, this is the stuff that is stopping a whole lot of stuff. For example, in Main Street Grafton, we have a bit similar attitude. I am fully aware of at least 3 significant projects ready to invest a whole ton of money in Main Street Grafton. And it's all sitting on the side because does Grafton want to invest in itself? And I'm not trying to call anybody out, but all of this is calling what we're calling hesitancy. Why should folks like myself leverage 30 years of professional relationships to bring things like $4 million to Crossfire when we don't want it?
And that's, one of the things about North Dakota is that you're reactive instead of proactive. We're not gonna spend any money on anything unless we have to. We're not gonna build for the future, we're just trying to fix things. And then one other thing I wanted to say, not to interrupt Don, but you are one of only 2 out of 42 communities that we're meeting with directly. You and Grafton, that's it. Everything else has been on a countywide basis. That's how important Walhalla is to this whole thing. I mean, you have the best tourism assets and recreational assets in these counties. And so that, just so you know that, you're only you and Grafton are the only 2 communities we're meeting with directly in this whole trip. Everything else has just been at the county level. So it's important. It's really, really important for Dawn, her crew, and for even the work we're assigned to do. So with that, you're free to go. Thank you so much.